Welcome to Real Time Recorded. This is Dave Michaels. I'm with Zeus Karavala. This is week 24 of 2022. Zeus, I saw you last week. We had quite the week in Las Vegas at Cisco Live.
Yeah, it was good to be back at Cisco Live, right? 3 years since the last one. So the 17,000 people showed up. So I was pleasantly surprised by that.
It's by far the biggest event I've been to in a long time. It's remarkable what a big event that was. I mean, that was a lot of people there. I understand a little bit of COVID showed up, but hopefully we'll be okay.
Yeah. It was one of the things I liked about the show actually this year was while they always show their shiny new toys, right? New switches, new whatever phones, and I thought a lot of the event was spent on the theme of making IT's job easier, and I thought that's something that all through the pandemic, we've talked about how to make workers' lives easier. And the brunt of making workers' lives easier has fallen on the IT department. And it's like we forgot about those folks. And so when you listen to all the keynotes, that was a big part of their focus, was how do we make the things that IT do easier. And I thought that was a really good theme for the show.
That is a good theme, and it's an important theme, because I can't get over, and I met a lot of people from IT organizations at Cisco Live. I think they make things really complicated for themselves. I was talking to this one guy, and he was like, oh yeah, we're using, let's see, Cisco for Wi-Fi. We're using, I think he said Microsoft Teams, and then we're using Zoom for telephony. And it's like, why are you doing all this? Why are you making things so complicated? And he had this like legitimate, quote, legitimate reason for all these things. But to me, it just seemed like job security. I think a lot of IT organizations make things a lot harder on themselves. And so
yeah, well, I met some of the extreme conferences like that. They were running Arista in the core, they were running Cisco at the edge, and in the branches, and they were running Extreme for Wi-Fi. And a lot of that had to do with just sort of legacy build out, right? That they acquired a company that was already running Arista, so that had to stay in place. He had thought about moving away from Aruba Wi-Fi in some parts, but he said that there's so many of them already deployed that taking that out and putting a new one in is overly complicated. And I suppose on the collab side, the Teams influence, you talk to, not a lot of people like Teams, but it's so widely deployed because of O365 that it's hard to decouple. And so you're right, I think we kind of do it to ourselves, but in a lot of ways, the vendors have shoved these things down people's throats and made it complicated. So, but that's why I did like a lot of the things Cisco was doing around Control Hub, right? One of the more interesting ones I thought was the Thousand Eyes acquisition. Thousand Eyes to me is an acquisition that Cisco made that was really cool. I had followed Thousand Eyes years before Cisco bought them, and for those not familiar, they actually track internet monitoring. I thought what was funny was the demo that G2 was trying to do failed, right? And I asked them later, I said, did you do that on purpose so you could go to Thousand Eyes and see why it failed? And he said, no, that wasn't planned. But it actually showed the value that Thousand Eyes brought. So the demo failed, they were able to use Thousand Eyes, look over the internet, see where the problem was, and that actually, in a real IT environment would help troubleshoot that. So,
I remember Thousand Eyes back when there were only like 600 eyes, and so they really improved quite a bit, and it's nice to see what they've done. But one of my takeaways, and you mentioned Thousand Eyes, but one of my takeaways from Cisco Live was how much Cisco has changed, particularly the Webex team, during the pandemic, and you go through all the announcements and all the stuff that they were showing, and it is a very different Cisco. Now, obviously it's been several years, and you expect a lot of companies to have changed quite a bit, but I'm talking about transformation here. I'm not talking about just bigger, faster, or cheaper, or whatever. I mean the kinds of things that they were pushing. Like for example, Thousand Eyes. But in the Webex team, they made 5 acquisitions during the pandemic, and every one of them has been integrated into the product line. The leadership team of the Webex team is completely new from the beginning of the pandemic till now. A few people are still the same, but they're in totally different roles. One of the big things they're pushing is interop. I mean, they're talking about interop with Microsoft Teams, with Zoom, with Google. None of that was there. You didn't even talk about interop when you talked about Cisco Webex. None of that was there before the pandemic. And we've talked before about the personal line of hardware. They didn't have a personal line of hardware before the pandemic. So we're talking about some significant transformation, and that was what I saw clearly on display at Cisco Live this year.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And again, that's part of making IT's job easier. And if I'm going to run, if multi-vendor is the norm, then maybe it'd be nice if the vendors made it easier to do multi-vendor. And it's something we sort of had that goes back to the Rowan, little tweet that he had about that happening. So it's good to see Cisco making that happen. They do continue to load up, with features, but like I said, I think a lot of the things they added to Control Hub were better. I liked even some of the things they were doing in the feature they called coaching, right, where they could actually help IT understand who's using what feature, why, and provide some insights as to where they should be applying resources and things. And so, hopefully through all of this, through the pandemic, some good comes of that. And at the back end of this, we wind up with an IT environment that's much easier than it was on the front end. And if you look at the size of Cisco's install base and the presence it has in the network, if they don't do it, then I don't know who would.
Let's get into some of the Webex announcements. I think one of the bigger announcements actually was yet another new device. They introduced the 8875, which is a new take on their video phone, basically a Cisco IP phone with a video camera on it. It looks pretty similar to the old one, except for it's got a bigger display. It's cloud ready, which is kind of an interesting, refresh, new take on it. What I found interesting about the 8875, it's fairly inexpensive. I think they said $725, something like that. But it's very, very close functionality-wise to the Webex Desk Mini. And so you've got this one is a phone-first device with a video camera, and the Webex Desk Mini for about $1,200 is more like a Facebook portal, or it's a small, it's a video-first device that can also do telephony. And so it's admittedly almost double the price, but it's the two very similar devices. And when I first saw them, I go, which one do I want? Which one would be better where? But they're both kind of targeting that home user or shared desk or something like that, where you need to do both voice and telephony. I thought it was kind of interesting how similar those devices are.
Yeah, and actually, you went down to you spent quite a bit of time on the floor, right?
Yeah,
I only went once, and it was nice to see how busy the Webex area is. I always think of Cisco Live as being primarily a network show, just because it so heavily dominates the customer base there. But I thought the Webex area was packed. So, and part of that is they just rolled out a lot of new devices in the last year, so that was probably good to see.
Yeah, I will complain a little bit. I want to get more to the expo hall here, but I want to cover some more announcements. But I will. One complaint was that they had a Webex area of the show floor, which was very nice and convenient. I like that. But then there was the general show floor that had mostly not Webex things, but there were Webex things kind of spread throughout. So it's a little tricky to find everything. It's like you'd be walking around the corner and hey, there's another Webex device or another Webex solution. So, but anyway, other announcements here. One of the more interesting announcements actually came out of that innovation lab. I forget what they have, if they have a name for it or not. It was a new video editing technology. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Oh, come on, you saw. I saw you saw it. The Omar gave it a demo. The ability to make a video recording, and edit it, not through traditional video editing tools, but like editing the transcript, and then it would basically modify the video. I thought it was a pretty interesting take on video. Editing.
That's pretty cool. That would help us.
I saw you in there. Yeah, you got inundated with too much information of this thing. But it was interesting because it's basically using deep fake technology, and so you get concerned about, well, wait a minute, they're using deep fake technology. That's a problem. But because you're doing it through your WebEx credentials, it's also more or less validating your video at the same time. I thought it was. I haven't seen anybody else create a video editing tool like this. You could both remove text and add text. And so removing text isn't so hard normally, but doing it from a transcript, taking a sentence and just taking it out, and then all of a sudden the video is edited. But being able to add an extra sentence, I thought that was pretty clever. They're basically using, they have to train your voice, and they can actually make it sound like it was you talking. I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, you gotta wonder what kind of compliance issues that creates. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they roll it out.
Yeah. Another thing they announced was Webex Contact Center integration to Teams. Not a whole lot of attention on that, but I guess that's kind of more or less required in the contact center space. Nice to see Cisco embracing that. So two other interesting announcements at Cisco Live, kind of similar but kind of not, is they announced a new Apple Play car kit integration and a new integration with Ford. What do you think of that Ford stuff?
Yeah, the Ford one, I thought the most interesting part of the Ford announcement actually wasn't really the integration with WebEx. That's interesting, and I think is a good future look at what the car might look like once we have autonomous vehicles. But it was what the CEO said during the keynote, which was that the innovation now is really, it's not about the transition to EVs, and everybody thinks it's that. It's really more about the transition to a digital car, right? Where he said for the first time ever in history, Ford can now make changes to a car and drive innovation to a finished product. And they couldn't do that before. And so now with everything being digital and everything being software and network based, they can make changes, they can drive it there. So I think the WebEx stuff is kind of interesting. Like, I mean, if you're sitting in your autonomous vehicle and you're on a long commute, you can do a call. I'm not so sure I want that. I think I'd rather listen to Bloomberg or Sports Talk Radio or something like that. But the option's there if you want it.
Zia's, we can talk on your long drives. That'll be just wonderful. You don't want something else. We can do more than. No, but I think you're right. I think certainly it's exciting for Ford to be able to upgrade the cars after they ship them and stuff like that. But I also think we're over rotated a little bit. In fact, that's one thing I like about Cisco. Cisco is still making great hardware, but it seems so much right now that the venture capitalist firms really want to fund great software ideas, and we need great hardware. And I think the U.S. is at the risk of losing the semiconductor industry and some other industries that are really based on hardware that just aren't getting enough attention as it is. But the WebEx stuff in particular, I mean, the basic idea that you can move a meeting like we're having to your phone, so you can be on your desktop or in a room and move it to your phone, and jump in your car, and for it to just pair and magically appear on your car, either through Apple Car Kit or through the Ford integration. I think that's pretty interesting. Or in your rocket ship, getting back to the Callisto stuff that we haven't even talked about, but that was Cisco announced that before. The what's the name of the company? Lockheed Martin putting WebEx on the rockets. But let's get over to the expo hall here. You mentioned that earlier. There were a couple booths that I saw that I thought were pretty interesting in the expo hall. I want to call out to Akixi, actually. Akixi is a UK-based company. I saw them on the show floor. There's so much talk right now about the contact center and managing all these calls coming in, but no one's really talking about the old model where calls just came in, like maybe it's a florist or maybe it's a pizza place, like that, where you have all these calls coming in, and particularly around mealtime at a pizza place, there's a real big spike. And Akixi's got this real nice dashboard solution designed to help you manage, help a business like that manage all these incoming calls. Great to see them at Cisco Live. Did you happen to see them, Zias?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool technology. Obviously, that's sort of this weird use case that we don't think about much more because we've been so trained on traditional contact center, right?
Yeah. Another company that stood out was Theta Lake. We've talked about Theta Lake before, and they're doing the security and compliance stuff. But I think this is one of those examples where you don't want to go to a place like Cisco to solve this, because they're solving the multi-vendor platform question, and they've solved it very cleverly by getting companies like Cisco to invest in them and so many others.
Yeah, I love Theta Lake. I think they're the best compliance engine out there. I think there's the only company that I thought was similar was Symphony, but they were very specific, right, to financial services. So, Theta Lake every year wins, the UC Today Compliance Award. They're one of the few that actually does it really well end to end. I thought, for companies out there that are really, that want to tighten down the screws on what people are doing, the content they're showing, Theta Lake's flat out the best solution out there.
One last booth I want to mention is Vection Technologies. It was actually a Metaverse play. I wasn't expecting to see that at Cisco Live, but they're using Webex as their infrastructure. And then once you get into the Webex meeting, you can put on these Oculus goggles and be in the Metaverse, which I'm not a big fan of in general. I've written a few things negative about, but they had a 3D model in there that you could explode it, you can rotate it, you can move it around. Maybe there's a use case for that. Do you have any thoughts on Metaverse in Webex?
Well, we'll see. During the analyst session, right, they did a panel for us on Metaverse, and I think they talked a lot about kind of being ready for the Metaverse. And I think if the Metaverse ever becomes anything, Cisco will be ready. One of the questions I asked was, give me some use cases, and nobody could really do that. So the only good use case I saw for Metaverse was I talked to Akixi about some work, software testing company work they'd done with Google and Apple and trying to model out COVID dispersion. So they were actually to create like a digital twin, if you will, of a crowded area in the Metaverse, and then model out how people walked, if they coughed, how germs dispersed and things like that. So that's kind of a niche use case, right? Perhaps you can use it in higher end, in stadiums and stuff. So maybe Metaverse becomes something sometime, but right now I'm not buying any land in the Metaverse yet. So
no. I got some small plan for you to sell the Metaverse.
I do have a bridge there to sell you, though, Dave.
So the last topic I want to bring up on Cisco Live was a topic that didn't actually get a lot of attention. I'm actually really excited about Webex Go. Just about to publish a research note, not so much on Webex Go, but on what I'm calling UCaaS Mobility 3. If you go back to Enterprise Connect, you had 3 keynotes, RingCentral, Microsoft, and Cisco, that were using the native dialer on the UCaaS solutions. And I think this is a huge, huge deal. I was surprised it didn't get much attention at Cisco Live. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Zeus. I'm curious to hear them. But I think this is a big shift in UCaaS.
Yeah, the ability to integrate natively into phones. I mean, UCaaS has largely been kind of tied to your landline, and then if you go mobile, it's done through a client, right? So it was kind of an overlay to it. And so now this is actually, years after the rise of the mobile phone, the first time we've actually got like really true mobility. So that's you could say one small step for Webex, but one big step for mobile kind, I guess.
Yeah, so no, I think it's a huge change with significant implications. Like, for example, I think it's going to completely disrupt the channels. But all that's coming in my research note probably later this week, and I think that wraps up this episode of Real Time Recorded and Cisco Live.